Chequers, Buckinghamshire, September 18th, 2025. The morning skies above Buckinghamshire throbbed with the sound of rotor blades as Marine One descended onto the manicured lawns of Chequers, the storied country residence of the British Prime Minister. It was here, far from the pageantry of Windsor Castle, that the US President Donald J. Trump began the second day of his historic state visit to the United Kingdom. The atmosphere was markedly different from the gilded grandeur of Windsor the evening before. Where the state banquet had been steeped in ritual, opulence and tradition, Chequers carried a quieter weight, one of diplomacy, negotiation and political candour. The symbolism of Trump's arrival at this estate, reserved for the most serious talks between leaders, was impossible to overlook. This was the stage where Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer would meet the American president face-to-face, away from the cameras and ceremonial pomp. The arrival itself was a carefully choreographed spectacle. Marine One swooped low over the rolling Chiltern Hills before tilting onto the grassy expanse in front of the residence. Cameras captured every moment of the descent. The helicopter loomed large against the backdrop of Chequers' stone facade, its blades whipping the morning air into a frenzy. Seconds later, the aircraft settled with a deliberate grace, completing its journey from Windsor to Buckinghamshire. As the rotors slowed, the door opened and President Trump stepped into the sunlight. Cameras focused tightly on his face as he exited Marine One and walked toward the waiting motorcade. He was accompanied by aides, Secret Service agents, and the unmistakable aura of power. Within moments, he slipped into a black car that whisked him toward the residence itself. The imagery was striking. The American president arriving not at Downing Street, but at Chequers, a place British leaders reserve for diplomacy conducted on their own terms. Chequers is no ordinary backdrop. The sprawling Tudor mansion, gifted to the nation in 1917, has been the site of some of Britain's most consequential meetings. It has hosted presidents, chancellors and monarchs. It has witnessed wartime councils and peacetime negotiations. For Trump, the visit underscored the gravity of this second state trip, which has already been marked by extraordinary symbolism. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, only a year into his premiership, had chosen to welcome Trump here as a signal of continuity and seriousness. While Downing Street projects politics, Chequers projects permanence. It is a reminder that Anglo-American ties are not simply a matter of party politics or temporary governments, but of enduring alliance. The visit itself is not without controversy. Trump remains a polarizing figure in Britain, as he does in the United States. His first state visit in 2019 sparked widespread protests across London, with critics decrying his positions on climate change, NATO, and international law. This second visit, coming in the midst of a turbulent geopolitical moment, has reignited many of those debates. For Starmer, hosting Trump is both a necessity and a challenge. Britain's post-Brexit reality demands closer ties with Washington, particularly on trade, defence and intelligence cooperation. But the optics of embracing Trump, whose blunt diplomacy often provokes division, are politically fraught. Yet the decision to host him at Chequers demonstrates that the Prime Minister sees the bigger picture, the need to keep Britain close to its most powerful ally. Although Trump did not address the press upon arrival, his words from the previous evening still resonated. At Windsor Castle, standing beneath chandeliers and gilt, he had told the assembled guests that the state banquet was, in his words, one of the highest honours of my life. For Trump, that sense of honour was now giving way to the business of diplomacy. His aides suggested that the discussions at Chequers would focus on several pressing issues: global trade, defence commitments, and the ongoing crises in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Trump has made no secret of his desire to redefine America's international role, and it is expected that he will press Starmer on Britain's financial and military contributions to NATO. Starmer and Trump present a study in contrasts. The British Prime Minister, a former lawyer and prosecutor, is known for his cautious language and measured tone. Trump, by contrast, thrives on theatrics, blunt statements and bold gestures. Their meeting at Chequers is in many ways a clash of political cultures, yet both leaders understand the stakes. The so-called special relationship between their nations is one of the most significant in the world, and neither can afford for it to appear fragile. Beyond the manicured lawns of Chequers, the public response has been divided. Supporters hailed the visit as a reaffirmation of the US-UK alliance at a critical juncture in world affairs. Critics, however, saw it as an embrace of a controversial figure whose policies and rhetoric often run counter to British values. Demonstrations were reported in London and Manchester, though far smaller in scale than the massive protests of 2019. The contrast between public division and official ceremony has been a defining theme of this state visit. From the royal grandeur of Windsor to the diplomatic sobriety of Chequers, every moment has been charged with symbolism, scrutiny and spectacle. The arrival of Trump at Chequers draws echoes from past visits. Dwight D. Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush all made their way to this countryside estate during their presidencies. For Trump, the visit cements his place among those presidents who sought to underline the depth of Anglo-American ties. But it also adds a twist. He is the first US president to be honoured with 2 state visits to the UK, an unprecedented recognition that continues to stir debate across the political spectrum. Following the private talks at Chequers, Trump and Starmer are expected to address the press together. The statements will be closely watched for signs of alignment or tension on global issues. Will Starmer echo Trump's calls for increased NATO funding? Will Trump endorse Britain's new climate policies or criticise them as he has in the past? The answers will shape not just the headlines of the day, but the trajectory of one of the world's most consequential alliances. As Marine One lifted off once more from Chequers lawn later in the day, its blades slicing through the Buckinghamshire sky, the symbolism lingered. This was more than a helicopter landing. It was a statement of intent. The United States and the United Kingdom, despite differences in style, politics and public opinion, remain bound by history and necessity. Trump's presence at Chequers underscored that reality. For Starmer, it was a delicate balancing act. To show respect, to protect national interests, and to navigate the politics of hosting one of the world's most polarising leaders. For Trump, it was another opportunity to project power on the world stage, to remind his critics and supporters alike that he remains central to the great dramas of our time.